There are some very effective ways that you can create organic growth for your podcast. I'm going to give you five super quick. One is optimize your podcast for search. One of the biggest mistakes we see when we do podcast audits for clients is that their show description is maybe 15, 20 words. It could be maybe even up to 150 characters with like a one line sentence. And that's just not enough to optimize your podcast for search. Apple Podcasts gives you up to 4,000 characters for your show description. Use it. Put your bio in. If you have a co host, put their bio in. Mention high profile topics that you talk about. If you have guests that have really large audiences that you've interviewed, include them in the show description. Just be super hyper aware to optimize your podcast for search. Number two, guest appearances. The easiest people to get to listen to your podcast are people who are already listening to podcasts. So, guests on other podcasts that have the same interests, the same topics, the same audience that might be interested in your podcast. That way, they get introduced to you, they get to hear how you sound and how you deliver your content, and make sure at the end of that guest appearance that your call to action is to drive traffic to your podcast. Number three is encourage listener engagement. So I mentioned the call to action in the guest appearances. The call to action is also equally as important for your podcast. So make sure that you use a CTA that converts. Like, for example, if you're interested in a really great resource around CTAs that convert, text CTA to 66866 and get the downloadable PDF on CTAs that convert. Very specific call to action. It's tied into the listener content and the listener's interest, and it has something valuable in it for the listener. Then there's your social media content. Make sure that you're leveraging social media to tie back to your podcast. But don't just say, tune into this episode or our next episode has dropped. Make it much more specific about our next episode that's going to be talking to you about how to grow your podcast organically is now available. Be sure to listen so that you can get the 5 effective tips to grow your podcast audience. Very specific. Posting in social media has the opportunity to expose your podcast to new discovery and new people, but you have to tell them why they want to spend their time with you to listen or watch your podcast. And by being really, really specific, instead of new episode just dropped, but really specific, then they might say, yay, I want to check out that podcast. And then the last tip is around consistently producing high quality content. If you want to draw high quality listeners that ultimately turn into high quality customers, you have to start by creating high quality content. And yes, that means the content that you're bringing as a host to the show, but that also means in investing in really good quality audio and video production so that your podcast is easy to listen to and easy to watch and not painful to listen to or hurtful to watch because it's not good quality. This is an area where you do not want to compromise. So try out these effective podcast growth strategies. Grow your podcast organically and send us a message. Let me know if you tried any of these and how they worked out for you, because I really want to help you grow your show.